I didn't expect her to open the door herself. Usually, she sent a message first, polite and distant. The heater's making that sound again. But this time, when the door clicked open, she was there. Hair loose, a cashmere cardigan slipping off one shoulder, the kind of stillness that makes you forget what you came for. The first thing I noticed wasn't her face. It was the air. Warm, scented faintly with jasmine and something faintly sharp, like the echo of perfume on silk. Her eyes found me with that slow kind of attention older people have, patient, deliberate, knowing exactly how long to hold a look. "You came fast," she said softly, a hint of amusement in her voice. I shrugged, trying to sound casual. "You said it was cold." "It was," she murmured, stepping aside to let me in. "Still is, somehow." The house was too quiet. No music, no TV, only the faint hum of the faulty heater. I set my toolkit down, but her presence made the air heavier than it should have been. Every move felt exaggerated, like the silence itself was watching. She leaned against the counter while I crouched to inspect the baseboard vent. "You really don't mind these late calls?" I looked up briefly. "No, I like helping." She smiled, small, genuine. "That's sweet. It shouldn't have sounded like that. Sweet." But it did, and something about the way she said it felt too close. The heater clicked again, metal expanding under heat. I adjusted a valve, pretending to focus, but her footsteps came nearer. Slow, deliberate. I could sense her more than see her. The soft rustle of fabric, the faint warmth radiating from where she stood. "Does it ever get strange?" she asked suddenly. "Going into people's homes? Being alone with them?" I turned the wrench one more time before answering. "Sometimes," I said. "Depends on the person." "And me?" I looked up then. She was standing just a few feet away, her gaze steady, too steady. "You," I said carefully, "make it hard to think about the heater." Her lips parted, maybe to laugh, maybe to say something else, but nothing came out. Instead, she looked toward the window, exhaling a small breath that fogged the glass. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence felt alive, filled with what neither of us wanted to admit. She walked to the thermostat, pressing a fingertip against the display. "It says 22, she murmured. "Warm enough, isn't it?" "Feels fine to me." Her voice dropped a note lower. "Maybe it's not the temperature then." The words hung between us, soft but sharp. She turned, met my eyes again, and this time, didn't look away. I stood slowly, wiping my hands on a cloth that suddenly felt unnecessary. "If it still doesn't work right, call me again," I said. "No charge." "I might just do that," she whispered. Something brushed my sleeve, her hand, maybe by accident, maybe not. Her fingers lingered for a fraction too long before pulling away. That simple touch, light as breath, said everything the silence couldn't. I reached for my toolkit, my pulse refusing to calm. "It should start warming up soon." She smiled faintly. "We'll see." The heater finally kicked on, humming low and steady. But the warmth it gave off felt secondary, almost irrelevant. Then a sound. The creak of the front gate outside. Someone else approaching. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. For the first time, her calm slipped, just slightly. "Don't leave yet," she said quickly. "It's just wait." And just like that, the air changed again. Warmer, heavier, and filled with something neither of us knew how to stop. I didn't leave that night when the gate creaked open. She told me it was just the neighbor checking the trash bins, but I stayed anyway. Something about her tone made it impossible to walk away. I pretended to check the heater again, though it was running perfectly fine now. She knew it too. "Tea?" she asked after a moment. "You look like you could use something warm." Her voice had softened, no longer polite, but low, like a secret that wasn't meant for the hallway air. I nodded, and she disappeared into the kitchen. From the doorway, I watched her move. There was grace in it, but not the practiced kind. She had the ease of someone used to being alone, no performance, just quiet rhythm. Her bare feet made soft sounds on the tile. The cardigan slipped again from her shoulder, revealing a freckle just above her collarbone. I shouldn't have noticed, but I did. When she handed me the mug, our fingers brushed. A slow, accidental graze that neither of us commented on. "You've got a steady hand," she said, watching the tea swirl. "You remind me of someone I used to know." I smiled, trying not to sound curious. "Someone from work?" She laughed once, quietly. "No. Someone who used to fix things. Except, not the kind you can hold a wrench to." Her tone faded toward something distant. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't. She filled the silence instead, as if she heard the question anyway. "My husband," she said simply. "Ex-husband now." There it was. A shadow she didn't name but didn't hide either. "Sorry," I said quietly. She waved it off, but the small tremor in her fingers didn't match her calm voice. "Don't be. It's been years. I'm just not used to company. That's all." I watched her eyes when she said that. There was a depth there. Not sadness exactly, but something more fragile. The kind of loneliness that becomes part of a person's rhythm. We sat at the small dining table. The air between us hummed softly, as if the heater itself was listening. "Do your friends ever wonder?" she asked suddenly. "You spending your evenings fixing things for women twice your age?" I laughed awkwardly. "You make it sound worse than it is." She tilted her head. "Is it?" I didn't answer. The question was too close to something real. Her hand moved across the table, fingers brushing against mine as if to punctuate the silence. It wasn't bold, just a whisper of touch, but it left a heat that had nothing to do with the room. She pulled back almost instantly, eyes flicking toward the window. "Sorry," she murmured, half smiling. "Old habit. I forget boundaries sometimes." I swallowed, voice low. "It's okay. I don't mind." That got a reaction, small but there. Her breath hitched, barely audible. The heater hummed louder, steady, constant. I wanted to say something, anything to make sense of the moment, but words felt clumsy. Instead, she stood and placed her hand on my shoulder. Light, brief. The warmth of her palm lingered even after she stepped away. "I think it's finally warm enough," she said, though her voice betrayed a tremor. I looked up at her, and for the first time she didn't look composed. She looked like someone trying not to admit something to herself. Neither of us moved. The silence pressed in. Somewhere between her touch and that stillness, something unspoken passed. A quiet, undeniable electricity that neither of us could name. And neither of us wanted to break it. The next time she called, it wasn't about the heater. Her message was short. "If you're free, could you stop by?" No reason, no explanation. I told myself I was just being polite when I said yes. But the truth was simpler. I wanted to see her again. When I arrived, she was standing by the window, a half-empty glass of wine on the sill, bare feet against the wood floor. The late afternoon light made her skin look almost translucent, soft gold on quiet edges. "The heater's fine," she said before I could speak. "I just didn't like how quiet the house was." There was a pause. I should have said something light, something that kept things safe. Instead, I just nodded and stepped closer. We ended up in the kitchen again. She poured me a glass this time, pretending it was casual. It wasn't. Her hands trembled slightly when the bottle touched the rim. "You know," she said, eyes on the counter. "People would talk if they saw you here this often." I let out a small laugh. "People don't notice much." She looked up, the kind of look that strips away whatever easy words you think you have. "They notice everything," she said quietly. Her phone buzzed on the counter, sharp and sudden. The screen lit with a name, Claire. She didn't answer, but the way she looked at the phone made me realize, whoever Claire was, she mattered. Maybe a friend, maybe someone who asked questions she didn't want to answer. The silence stretched. Then she pressed her thumb to the screen and flipped it over. "Later," she whispered, as if saying it to herself. I leaned closer, close enough to catch the faint scent of her hair. Something floral, clean, almost familiar. She didn't move away. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I know." Neither of us stepped back. Her breath brushed my cheek when she spoke again. You're too young to waste your time on someone who already knows how things end. I don't care how it ends, I said. Not right now. Her lips parted slightly, not a smile, not a refusal. Just suspended there, like she wanted to speak but couldn't. The air between us thinned until it felt dangerous. I reached out barely, my hand hovering near hers. Her fingers twitched, then steadied, as if fighting against the instinct to meet mine. Then the knock. 3 quick raps at the door. She froze. Don't, she whispered, eyes wide. Stay there. I stepped back, heart pounding. She smoothed her hair, grabbed the empty wine glasses, and forced a calmness into her voice that didn't reach her eyes. When she opened the door, a man's voice drifted in. Forgot the mail again, Ellen, he said. Her neighbor. She thanked him, smiled too quickly, shut the door again. Then she leaned against it, breathing out shakily. I told you, she murmured half to herself. People notice. I moved closer, quietly. She didn't stop me this time. Our reflections met in the darkened window, her face near mine, barely inches apart, both of us caught between guilt and want. She didn't kiss me, neither of us did. But her hand came to rest against my chest, trembling once before she left it there. A confession without words. And for the first time, neither of us pretended the room was cold anymore. Rain started before I even reached her street. Thin, persistent, the kind that turns everything gray. I told myself I was just checking in. But when she opened the door, barefoot again, sweater sleeves pulled over her hands, I knew it wasn't about the heater anymore. You're soaked, she said softly. Come in. I did. The house felt different this time, darker, quieter. No hum from the heater, just the faint rhythm of rain against the windows. She handed me a towel, her fingers brushing mine longer than necessary. I wasn't expecting you, she said. You texted. I reminded her. I deleted it, she said, before you could see it. We both stood still. The space between us was small but heavy, full of something we'd been circling for too long. Her voice dropped lower. You shouldn't keep coming here. Then stop calling, I said, though we both knew she wouldn't. A silence followed, sharp, unguarded. Her eyes flicked over my face, then away, as if she was trying to memorize something and forget it at the same time. I don't know what you want from me, she whispered. I don't either, I said. But it's not nothing. Her breath caught, that small, involuntary sound that says more than words ever can. I stepped closer, close enough to see the fine lines near her eyes, the tiny shiver in her lip. She looked up. You have no idea what this would cost me. I don't care, I said, but my voice wasn't steady. I just... She reached up suddenly, fingers brushing through my damp hair. It was a small gesture, but it undid me. My breath faltered. Her hand lingered near my jaw, trembling, uncertain. I can't do this, she murmured, though she didn't move away. You already are. Her lips parted, not for words, but for breath. I could feel it against my mouth, warm, close enough to taste. Her phone buzzed again on the table. Once, twice, then silence. Neither of us moved. Answer it, I said, but my voice came out low, almost a whisper. I don't want to, she said. The confession broke something open. She leaned in. Not a kiss, not yet, just her forehead resting against mine. Her hands found the edge of my jacket, gripping lightly, as if to steady herself. The rain outside grew louder, echoing the pulse between us. I hate that you make me feel this young, she whispered, the words shaking against my skin. I hate that you make me forget I am, I said. Her laugh came out broken, breathy, too close to a sob. Then she looked at me, really looked, and I knew there was no way back from here. I lifted a hand, brushed a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes closed. Then the sound of a car door outside. Voices. She froze, every muscle tightening beneath my touch. Don't, she said quietly, eyes still closed. Not now, please. And even as we stood there, hearts colliding, the space between our lips narrowing to nothing, the moment fractured, suspended on the edge of everything that could never fully happen. The next morning, I told myself not to go back. But by late afternoon, I was parked outside her house again. Same narrow street, same small gate, same ache I didn't have a name for. Her curtains were drawn this time. I almost turned away, until her voice came through the barely open door. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," I said. She hesitated, then opened the door wider. "Come in before someone sees." Her tone was sharper now, nervous, guarded. Not the calm warmth I was used to. Something had changed. The house felt colder than usual, like she hadn't turned the heat on since last night. She stood across from me, arms crossed, avoiding my eyes. "What happened?" I asked. She looked up then, eyes red, not from tears but lack of sleep. "Claire called," she said quietly. "She heard your voice yesterday." I blinked. "She what?" "She stopped by last night. I must have left my phone on the table. She heard me talking to you." Her voice trembled slightly, but she held my gaze. "She asked if I'd lost my mind." I stepped closer. "And what did you tell her?" She laughed once, dry and sharp. "That you were fixing the heater." Again. She didn't believe me. I ran a hand through my hair. "So what does that mean?" "It means," she said slowly, "that people are already starting to talk." The silence that followed was suffocating. I took a small step closer. "Does it matter what they think?" She looked at me, then really looked, and for the first time I saw something fierce behind her calm. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I built this life after everything fell apart. My ex, my friends, this house. It's all I have left that's mine. And now—" Her voice cracked and she turned away. I reached out instinctively, fingers brushing her arm. She stiffened at first, then didn't move. "Ellen," I said softly, "I don't want to make things harder for you." Her breath came unevenly. "You already have." She turned back to me, eyes wet but defiant. "You walk in here, you look at me like—" She stopped herself, pressing her lips together. "You don't even know what that does to me." "I think I do," I said, and took another step closer. She didn't retreat this time. The air between us pulsed, heavy, electric. Her fingers brushed against mine, hesitated, then gripped tight, as if she was about to push me away but forgot how. "I should tell you something," she said quietly. My heart jumped. "What?" She swallowed hard. "I called you that first time because I remembered your name. You weren't a random number. You were the kid who used to help my neighbor with yard work. You were 17. The words hit like a quiet blow. "You remembered me?" I asked. "I shouldn't have," she said. "But I did. And when I saw you again at the door, She stopped, breath trembling. "I wanted to see if you'd remember too." I did. I remembered the summer, the laughter over the fence, the shy glances I'd convinced myself I'd imagined. Neither of us spoke. Then she stepped closer, too close, her voice a whisper. "So tell me, was it really just about fixing the heater?" My pulse thudded hard. "No," she nodded slowly, as if that truth both terrified and relieved her. For a long moment we stood there, two people who'd already crossed a line without meaning to. Then she exhaled shakily and said, "If you come back after tonight, don't knock. Just come in." The words weren't an invitation. They were a decision, and once spoken, they couldn't be undone. I didn't knock that night. The rain had stopped hours ago, leaving the world still and silver, everything damp enough to hold its breath. Her house looked asleep. One dim lamp in the living room, curtains half drawn. When I pushed the door open, it creaked softly. She was standing near the window again, arms wrapped around herself, a shadow moving in the lamplight. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "You told me not to knock," I replied. She smiled, faint, tired. "I didn't think you'd listen." For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us carried everything we hadn't said. Every glance, every hesitation, every time we'd almost reached for each other and didn't. Her sweater hung loose over her frame. She'd pulled her hair back, but a few strands had fallen forward, brushing against her cheek. Without thinking, I stepped closer and tucked one behind her ear. She didn't pull away. "You shouldn't keep doing that," she whispered. "Doing what?" "Making me remember what it's like to be wanted." Her voice cracked, the words barely more than breath. I could feel her trembling, not from fear, from everything she tried not to feel. "I'm not trying to make you remember," I said. "I just can't stop." Her eyes flicked to mine, full of something raw and unguarded. She reached out then, fingertips brushing the collar of my shirt, tracing a path that burned where she touched. "This is wrong," she said, voice barely steady. "Then why are you shaking?" She laughed once, quiet, broken, and leaned forward until her forehead rested against my chest. The small sound of her exhale landed right against my heartbeat. "I told myself you'd stop showing up," she murmured. "That you'd get tired of this." "I did," I said, "and I still came." Her hands slid up my arms, stopping at my shoulders, and for a second she looked like she might pull me closer. Instead, she froze. "If we do this," she said slowly, "it changes everything." I nodded. Maybe everything needs to change. The words hung there, fragile, almost dangerous. Her eyes searched mine, looking for something to hold on to, maybe something to blame. Then she whispered, "You don't know what I've lost already." I took her hand, gently, firmly, and placed it against my heart. "Then don't lose this too." The moment stretched, the hum of the heater filling the silence like a heartbeat. Her face was inches from mine. The smell of her skin, faint jasmine, rain warmth, pulled every thought apart. And then, finally, she looked at me with absolute clarity. Not fear, not confusion, just truth. "I can't pretend anymore," she said. "I'm not asking you to." Her breath trembled once against my lips. Almost a kiss, almost everything. And then she stepped back, just a single pace, eyes wet but certain. "Then you should go," she whispered, "before I don't." The words didn't sound like rejection. They sounded like surrender she couldn't allow. For a long moment we just stared, two people finally understanding what the other meant, even without touching. I turned to leave. At the door, I heard her whisper behind me, soft, barely there. "The room already feels colder." Days passed before I saw her again. I told myself I wouldn't go back, that what she said was final. But truth has its own gravity, and sometimes silence pulls harder than words. When I finally did return, it wasn't raining this time. The air was still, faintly warm, like the pause before summer begins. Her house looked unchanged. Same curtains, same quiet hum from the heater. But I noticed the porch light was on. Maybe she'd left it that way for a reason. She opened the door before I could knock. "I thought I told you not to come back," she said. "You did," I answered. "But I didn't listen then either." Her eyes softened, though her mouth tried to stay firm. "You never do." There was no tension now, just a tired honesty between us, the kind that follows a storm. She stepped aside and I entered. The familiar scent, jasmine, wood polish, something uniquely hers, made the air feel heavier than I expected. The heater clicked faintly in the corner. "It's working fine," I said, trying to smile. She nodded. "It hasn't broken once since you last fixed it." A small pause, but the house still felt cold. The words hung there, deliberate. I set my tool bag down, though we both knew I hadn't brought it for repairs. She was standing close now, close enough that I could feel her warmth. "I thought you wanted me to go," I said. "I did," she whispered. "I still might. But you haven't." Her eyes met mine, steady, searching. "Because I'm tired of pretending that wanting something at my age should feel like a mistake." I didn't say anything. I just reached out, and this time she didn't stop me. My hand found hers, smaller than I remembered, cool against my skin. She let out a small, trembling breath. "I spent years convincing myself that comfort was enough," she said. "That wanting more was for younger people. And then you showed up, fixing things that weren't really broken." "I was just trying to help," I said quietly. "You did," she replied. "Just not in the way I expected." She stepped closer, her forehead resting gently against my chest. Her arms slid around me, hesitant at first, then certain. I held her, not to claim her, but to steady her, to remind us both this was real. No grand confession followed. No perfect words. Just the sound of the heater running steady, the rhythm of two heartbeats slowly matching. After a while, she pulled back slightly, her hand still in mine. "Stay a little," she said. "I was hoping you'd ask." We moved to the couch, not far apart this time. The silence was comfortable now. Her head rested against my shoulder. My fingers traced gentle circles on her hand. Outside, the night deepened, soft and blue. She looked up once more, eyes calm. "It's warm now," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, smiling faintly. Finally. And for the first time, the warmth felt exactly right. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?